All right. So, starting off, how did you get into psychedelic research and science?
So I knew about psychedelics as a young person and a teenager. I was a DJ. I was writing a lot. I grew up in a household of very liberal family members. So my first introduction to psychedelics was through art and literature and music, and then experiences as a young person. Then I went to medical school and trained as a doctor. Then I specialized and did psychiatry. And when I was doing psychiatry, because I knew about all the work of the 50s and 60s, I would say to my psychiatric tutors, can you tell me about LSD psychotherapy? And they all said, what are you talking about? That's crazy. That never happened. And I was like, it did. It was a big thing in psychiatry back then. And they said, no, that's ridiculous. And so I wrote a paper about psychedelics. First paper to be published in the British medical press on psychedelics since the 60s. And very quickly found this whole group of people around the world. This is like 20 years ago almost. Small group of people then who are doing it. And so that was one thing. But the main thing that's driven me in the psychedelics is just the recognition of the lack of efficacy of current best treatments in psychiatry. So just seeing my patients fail to progress with SSRIs and CBT and traditional models, and just thinking there has to be a better way. There has to be a better way. So driven by patient motivation.
Wow, thank you. And what do you think is the biggest challenge right now in the field of psychedelics?
The biggest challenge is money. Yeah. It's like we know we have the safety and efficacy data. We know the drugs work. We know they're safe and that they're effective. What we have to try and do now is turn this academic research into meaningful healthcare programs. So it's all very well doing studies on 12 to 15 people in a university department, but what we need is mass accessibility for hundreds of thousands or millions of patients all over the world for free. And this is about working with politicians and approvals agencies and healthcare services. And it's really exciting to be coming out of universities and into universal healthcare. And actually at this stage, when I look back 15 years ago, where at these kind of conferences we talked about scraping together a few £100 to do a small pilot study. Now we're talking about building hospitals and treating hundreds of thousands of people in the community. That's amazing. So that's the biggest challenge, turning academia into healthcare.
Yeah, we've seen some amazing progress these last couple of years. And I'm very curious to hear, what do you think, where do you think the field will be in 20 years?
That's a really good question. We have to be really careful not to be too carried away. We have to keep your mind open, but not so wide that your brain falls out. One of the things that killed psychedelics in the 60s was this kind of messianic approach that, if everyone takes LSD, we'll all live in chemical utopia and save the world. It's not that simple. We have to hold on to the reality of it. Having said all that, I genuinely think that psychedelic psychotherapy represents a completely new paradigm. It totally tackles and challenges this top-down biological daily maintenance psychopharmacology that we've been doing for the last 40, 50 years. So this really is a radical new way of doing it. So in answer to your question, the hope is we're going to change the way we do psychiatry. We're not going to be using daily maintenance drugs. Psychedelic psychotherapy is more like surgery. It's an upfront, intensive, expensive input to get the patient better and then discharge them and never have to see them again. This completely turns on its head the current maintenance model that we have in psychiatry. So fingers crossed.
Very hopeful. Thank you, Ben.
Thank you.